If I asked you to tell me a story, any story, I'm sure you'd be able to give me one off the top of your head. Hansel and Gretel, what happens in Star Wars, even an amusing tale of something that happened in the kebab shop late last Saturday night. As actors, we know, or should know, hundreds of these stories. They are the lifeblood of our craft. But what is plot? How is it different to story? And how can it help us to understand character, as well as tell tales that have direction and shape? Hello, welcome to Organic Acting. Story and plot can be confused with each other. After all, both are associated with fiction, storytelling, and both, in a sense, help us describe the events and content of a piece. However, there is one fundamental difference, one that has an effect on the shape of our stories and the arc of the characters within them. Let's imagine that this story is a set of dominoes stacked on end. You might say that over here you have your heroes or protagonist, over here your villains or conflict, your antagonist. Round about here you have the main action of the story, what the whole damn thing is about. Plot is unique. Plot deals with cause and effect, or rather, one event or decision leading on to the next, and on to the next, and on to the next. Because this happens, and because of that, this happens, etc., etc. Cause and effect. Let's look at Star Wars as an example. If I asked you to tell me what the story of Star Wars was about, you might say, Star Wars is about the Rebel Alliance resisting the evil Empire and of Luke Skywalker finding the Death Star plans and bringing them to the Rebels, using the Force and blowing up the Death Star, right? The plot of Star Wars would go something like this. Princess Leia, evading the Empire, sends her droids and the Death Star plans down to Tatooine. Because of this, Luke finds the plans and takes them to Obi-Wan Kenobi, which in turn leads to the Empire murdering Luke's aunt and uncle. Because of this, Obi-Wan convinces Luke to come with him to Alderaan, and because of this, they meet Han and Chewie and encounter the Death Star, on and on and on until the conclusion of the piece. Plot, falling dominoes, cause and effect. So, now that we understand the fundamentals of plot, we can now move on to one of the most common character arcs in storytelling, the want versus need, or more commonly, the positive change arc. In this arc, we are usually introduced to a character in the first act who is living a lie while directing their lives towards an unfulfilling want. Most of these characters are damaged, a traumatic event or ghost in their lives influencing them to live in a selfish, arrogant, obsessive, or just an unfulfilled way. They aren't good people at this stage in the plot. In Finding Nemo, Marlin, traumatized by the death of his wife and children, pours his entire protective attention onto his only son, Nemo, obsessively shielding him from the outside world. In the MCU's Iron Man, Tony Stark, left without true recognition and acceptance by his father, lives the life of a selfish, arrogant playboy, using his skills to manufacture weapons for the military. In Rain Man, Charlie Babbitt, left without a loving upbringing from his father, we noticing a theme here, pours his attention into his import car dealership business, believing happiness comes from money, wealth and success. Back to our boy Luke Skywalker, an orphan farm boy sheltered from the galactic conflict, wants escape and adventure with the Academy, but has no wish to use his talents for the rebellion or fight the tyranny of the Empire. These character faults fall under the label of dramatic tragedy. We know the characters are living a lie. They live for what they want, and that flaw will lead to a dramatic fall from grace. In the first act, they may be offered a new worldview or way of living, but they reject it. Nemo's teacher planning to take Marlin's son beyond the reef. Obi-Wan offering to take Luke to Alderaan and teach him the ways of the Force. Remember that plot is cause and effect? The behaviour of these characters and their normal world will always invite trouble. This is what we call the first plot point. This is a major upset or traumatic event to the situation that will turn the character's life upside down. In Finding Nemo, Nemo is taken by a diver while Marlin is helpless to fight back. In Iron Man, Stark is severely injured by one of his own weapons. In Rain Man, Charlie discovers his inheritance has been left to his autistic brother, a brother he never even knew existed. In Star Wars, Luke returns home to find his aunt and uncle murdered. The list goes on in multiple plot lines. Maximus betrayed, his family slain. Jerry Lane told in World War Z that his family cannot stay safe aboard the ship unless he goes out to help cure the virus. Lightning McQueen marooned in Radiator Springs after a disastrous detour. The first plot point is essential to the arc, as it fundamentally moves the piece in a new direction and allows the protagonist to react to the new status quo. It causes such an upset that the character commits to a decision that sets them on a journey and moves them away from the comfort of their normal world. This pushes us firmly into Act 2. So, a recap. Protagonist with a ghost, living a lie. Offered a new perspective with an inciting incident they reject. First plot point that shatters their world and sends the protagonist on an adventure and into Act 2. It is here in the second act where we see the character chase after the thing they want. However, they soon come to realise the old rules of their normal world no longer apply. They are at the mercy of the antagonist or the conflict. No matter how hard they push, the antagonist pushes back. Marlin ignores the advice from the fish to go through the trench, not over it, and decides to take the path that seems the safest, sending himself and Dory into the middle of a jellyfish swarm. Charlie, having kidnapped his brother, must get them across country as quickly as possible. He tries to force Raymond onto a plane, which results in Raymond having an emotional breakdown. The pushback at this point, the cause and effect, is the writer's way of showing the character that their want and old life are no longer effective ways to operate in the world. This all leads to a significant moment in plot structure, the midpoint. The midpoint in Act 2 is where the character begins to see the truth, rather than what they want, what they need to live a better life. They finally become less of a reactionary character and take firm action to overcome the antagonist or force of conflict. Although they do not completely reject their lie, they accept the appeal of the truth. There is a better way to do things. Marlin is rescued by the sea turtles and sees how they trust their children to look after themselves. They don't need to be frightened of the world around them. Only through taking risk do they grow. Marlin resolves to swim on through to Sydney, through a dark, hazy ocean of peril. Charlie discovers a trauma in his brother's past and finally connects with him. He sees not only is Raymond a human being, but one with feelings, talents, and a unique outlook on the world. Charlie realises that he himself is a brother, a part of the Babbitt family, and has a responsibility to those around him. This turning point in the plot is a big shift for the character. The dominoes of plot are creating change, momentum. Inciting incident, first plot point, midpoint. The second half of the second act is where the character firmly shifts out of the reactive phase. He presses on against the antagonist and starts to take control of the conflict himself. He has recognised the truth and the glory of the thing he needs, but he hasn't totally given up his grip on the lie. He thinks he has a handle on things, but his want, the lie, means he is still half blind. Marlin charging into the EAC, swallowed by the whale, can't quite trust Dory's instruction to just let go. Charlie Babbitt, realising how special his autistic brother is, races them both down to Vegas to count cards and save his failing car business. And lo and behold, from the protagonist's actions Cause and effect, the conflict or the antagonist pushes back one final time and we have our crisis moment. This is the third plot point at the end of Act 2. This moment is the most important point in any plot. It is where all seems lost and the character can either give up or rise again to win the day. In terms of the positive change arc, it is where our hero is faced with what he wants versus what he needs. The entire crux of his story is where his old life, his old beliefs must be rejected. He must fully embrace the truth, embrace the thing he needs. Only with this truth can he rise again and confront his nemesis in Act 3. In Nemo, Marlin thinks his son dead. Straight after they are reunited, Nemo is caught in a fishing net. He realizes he can let go. He trusts his son to look after himself and motivate the fish to swim down and get out of the net. He relinquishes his need to control, his old lie. He embraces risk, belief, understanding, and the joy of life. In Rain Man, Charlie takes Raymond to his home ahead of the custody battle. Raymond hurts himself and almost sets fire to the house. Charlie chooses to let Raymond go back to his care home and not fight the custody battle. He lets go of his old want to win, to control, to earn a quick buck at the expense of other people. He embraces his need for family, responsibility, and to be a caring brother. We see this time and time again in the positive change arc as we head into Act 3 and the conclusion. Obi-Wan Kenobi dies, Luke joins the rebellion and uses the Force. Jerry narrowly avoids the Jerusalem swarm and the plane crash, sacrifices himself to save mankind. Lightning McQueen, ripped from Radiator Springs, is lost back on the race circuit. He realises he can no longer work solo and embraces others. He needs friends. He needs teamwork. So there you have it. Plot, positive change, the want versus need arc. I urge you to keep an eye out for it in all story and plot. Not just film, of course, but in prose, plays, all fiction. It will turn up far more frequently than you think. Of course, this isn't the only type of plot device out there. What do you think would happen in a negative change plot arc? Interesting. If you did find something useful in this video, please consider hitting the like and subscribe buttons or even the super thanks button. They really do help me out. And if you're interested in other video essays, click on one of these videos here. I've been Chris, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.